Good.
Good. Good evening. Welcome to the February 12th meeting of the Manchester Town Council. The minutes were not completed and sent out in time to be approved tonight, so we'll, next month in March, we'll do both the January and February minutes. Second is the receipt of the Treasurer's report from January. So you have that in your packet, also be sent electronically. We need a motion to receive the Treasurer's report.
I'll make a motion we receive the Treasurer's report.
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Mayor's report, just real briefly, and actually my report is really kind of the next couple of items on here. So we'll just move right in. First is confirmation of election board. I'll move slowly so we have Councilman Black can participate. So what's going on is that you have three people in your packet: Marianne Wareheim, Nancy Herman, and Belva Lamont. Belva Lamont is replacing Catherine Riley, who has served on the election board for quite a while. I don't know how long, but I know she's been there since I've been aware of the election board, I believe. So, definitely thank you to Ms. Riley for her service on the election board over the years, as well as a number of other endeavors within town. This election board, so we do need to vote on this tonight to approve these people. The individuals on the list are not here to be sworn in, so what we'll do is if they pass the vote tonight, then I'll come back and swear them in when they can be here. But we do need, I believe, Kelly can correct me on the timing, we need to move on this tonight so that everything kind of lines up for the May election. Any questions or?
I'll make a motion we approve Marianne Wareheim, Belva Lamont, and Nancy Herman.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so they'll be sworn in as soon as we can meet them here. You have an election, you have a packet here, and this will also go out for public consumption with some dates of the election. So this is an election year. Election will be held on Tuesday, May 21st. 3 council seats will be up for office. The term is 4 years. Candidates must have resided within corporate limits for at least 1 year immediately preceding the election and must be a qualified voter within the town. So that will go out. We have election packets available now, right, Kelly? So somebody could stop in and sign that, and this kind of leads into, I guess we'll get into that later, so we'll kind of figure out what we're doing with the ethics thing as we move down, but the way we're going to handle it right now, so if somebody comes in and applies right now, then they're going to be subject to the ethics rules we have now. I know for you guys sitting here, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but the state has changed ethics rules on us. So typically, and so we have ours every year, we sign something that basically says, hey, we didn't receive gifts, we don't, we're not also a vendor of the town, like those sort of things. And if you are to any extent, then you have to declare it. The state has made it much more stringent and kind of like 20-fold increased the amount of things that we have to declare and talk about. I guess it's a fair way to say it. So we're in the process of doing that. We have to come up with a plan that then gets approved by the State Ethics Commission. Then we adopt it. Then it becomes, everybody becomes subject to it kind of as they roll in. So that's where we are, and we're in the process of doing that. And if you're here later on, you'll hear a little bit more. So I have any questions on any of those things? Steve, Town Administrator report.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. We'll go ahead and start with the January 2013 Administrative Report. Under pending items, the Sheets expansion and the MTBE issue. The MTBE update meeting will be scheduled in April. The Route 27 and Route 30 intersection, Route 27 and Westminster Street widening project, no change in either one of those projects. On the solar project, we met with representatives from CQI on January the 22nd. We laid the groundwork for the feasibility study. Our first draft of the study is to be completed by March the 4th. They do have some questions that they do have into the Public Service Commission that they have not received any answers back yet. As Mayor Warner spoke, we'll bring up the ethics ordinance draft a little bit later. The feral cat issue, we made contact with Metro Ferals on January the 29th, and they do plan on doing another trapping in early spring. Under new construction, construction still continues on a faster than normal pace. Currently, there are only 2 permits yet to be pulled in Halley Hills. 34 in Manchester Farms, and 27 in Castlefield. Enforcement continues as far as code enforcement. Under miscellaneous items, Mr. Riley and I attended the monthly WRCC meeting on January the 23rd. A presentation was given by Carroll County Bureau of Resource Management in regards to stream rehabilitation projects across the county. This is an action item you have in your packet. We did do some updates to the personnel policy, and we'll come back to that. The cleaning bid results are currently being reviewed. Over the next several weeks, we will begin accepting credit cards for payment of water and sewer bills. Another action is a grant from Maryland Energy Administration and adoption of policies. And I have two requests for the mayor and the council. The first request is that they consider revisiting the Town Hall, Historical Center, and Police Department relocation, and also a request that the mayor and council consider the possibility of a youth representative on council. We used to have a youth representative probably 8 or 10 years ago. I think we have some very good students in the area that it would benefit the town if we got the youth perspective on some things in the town. Moving right along, we'll go ahead and move into the January 2013 Public Works Report. Under water, you have in front of you the monthly water and wastewater status report. You will see in that report that our daily numbers had climbed for the month of January. We had a bad spell right there where we had a water main break. We had 9 total leaks. 8 were on homeowner side and 1 were on the town. Our folks did a fine job on locating those leaks, and now those numbers are back down to within normal range. They're back around about 260,000 a day, which is good. We did have a pre-construction meeting for the new Manchester Valley High School pumping station on January the 29th. We were able to meet the contractor for the project, who is Phillips Way. They're a local contractor located in Finksburg. This contractor has done work for the Board of Education in the past. Mobilization was to begin yesterday. I didn't see any movement down there, so I do know they did some stakeout down there, but actually full mobilization did not begin. And the project is slated to be completed at the end of June. So I'm glad to see that moving along. Our water system emergency response plan, I have that probably, the update to that's probably about 60% complete. There is a thank you letter going around to the Manchester Fire Department. They have graciously donated 5 low-band radios to the town. We can use those low-band radios if our main communications go out. So that was a very nice gesture on their response. So if everybody can sign that, I'll get that off to the fire department. Late today, I did receive some information from Hydroterra, the company doing our water, wastewater, and stormwater study. That study is right now approximately 50% complete. So we're moving right along with that. They're moving right through the scope of work, so hopefully we'll have something back to the Planning and Zoning Commission hopefully in the next several months to make some moves on our code update. Under wastewater, the wastewater treatment plant was in compliance for all the parameters for January. The new replacement pump was installed at the spray irrigation facility last month, and operators are making preparations for the transfer to spray irrigation over the next several weeks. Under NPDS and stormwater, maintenance has been completed at the stormwater management facility at Michelle Road and 30. Under maintenance roads and parks, we have accepted the replacement utility truck on February the 8th, and we had 3 snow events in January. My last topic down at the bottom, you can see our comparison for solid waste and recycling since 2009. I'm very impressed with those numbers because those are the numbers you want to see. You want to see the solid waste numbers go down and the recycling numbers go up. So I'm very impressed with that. That is really working out well. That's it with the exception of those action items. Before we move into that, does anybody have any questions on my report?
Steve, a couple things. Just item 2 under pending items, Route 27 to 30 intersection. I know that the last I remember of that project was that obviously the scope of the project had kind of gotten way larger than what
That is correct,
we were
yes.
wanting it to happen. Where we left off was requesting that the road still be widened, but the utilities not dropped and everything else.
Correct.
And then they the response was, well, we didn't know that we were dropping the utilities. They
Right.
didn't really understand the plan they
Exactly.
made themselves. So have we had any update from them as far as?
We've had none.
Okay.
None. One thing that may be behind the scenes, SHA may be working with Sheets. I can't answer that for sure because I haven't heard anything back from Sheets as far as the expansion or the new building. So
Right.
I can't answer that. That's a possibility.
Okay. And then the only other thing I was questioning was the youth representative. Is that somebody we choose, people apply for that position, or is it an
I
elected?
believe the way it worked the last time, that we offered it to high school students, and if they were interested, they would put their name in. We would have a panel of council people that would review their applications, and, if they felt that one of the use, seemed to fit the bill, they would bring them on. They would not have a vote, but it was good input. And I think over the years, we probably had at least 2 that I can remember. It might have been 3.
I think it was 3.
Yeah, but they added some very good input. I mean, to the different things around town, to the skate park, to Christmas Street Park. I mean, they added a use point of view, and it was very, very helpful. So,
I still see at least one of them around.
yeah, yeah. They sat
Yeah, it
down
was-
here
it was
with
good.
us. We walked them through the process. Once they understood, a little bit of the process, they really added something to the meeting. So, I think it would be nice. We have a brand-new high school in town, and I think we have a lot of good folks down there, a lot of good kids down there.
So do we need a motion or anything for that? I think that's a great program.
We really don't. I mean, we can,
Is anybody against that idea?
if somebody would like to, head that up, and we'll assist them and help them in that, yeah, so that's fine. We'll move ahead with that project. Yeah, we'll get in touch with you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'll work. Very good.
Steve, the action items I had, is there an action item that does not have its own section in the agenda already?
Yes. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn. Okay, the personnel policy is on the agenda, and the MEA grant doesn't. And I
Is
can
not.
talk about that real quick.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Received information just over the past week from Maryland Energy Administration, and they are again putting out grants to counties and municipalities and cities. There is a little problem with that, and I'll go through that. If we put in a letter of intent and an application, in that letter of intent and the application, we have to verify that we will meet 2 of 3 goals. And I'll go through them real quick. The first goal is to establish an electricity consumption baseline and develop a plan with the goal to reduce per square foot electricity consumption of the city, town, county buildings by 15% within 5 years of adoption. Okay, that is one of the first goals. The second goal is to reduce conventional centralized electricity generation serving a local government's buildings by meeting 20% of those buildings' electricity demand with distributed renewable energy generated by 2022. Now, if our solar project moves forward, we're covered under that. So that doesn't bother me too bad. I think that's okay. Policy 3, or Goal 3, is to establish a petroleum consumption baseline for all local government vehicles and put in place a comprehensive program designed to reduce the baseline by 20% within 5 years of the baseline year. There's some issues along the way, and the issues that I have is we will probably be bringing on some new structures over the next few years. Of course, we will be adding vehicles over the next few years. We always have to figure in if we have a huge amount of snow, we consume a lot of diesel fuel and a lot of gas for our vehicles. So there's a couple things we have to take into consideration. Now, they are goals. I think probably the maximum amount of grant money that we will get would probably be around $20,000. Along with these goals are yearly reports that have to be presented to MEA. So there's a lot of items attached to the $20,000. I would venture to say we probably would not get above $50,000 in grant. I'm using the 20,000 figure because that's what we received last time we did the lighting project. But these are policies that, you folks have to adopt 2 of the 3 of these policies before I can move ahead.
And what was the timeline on this, Steve?
March the 1st, I have to have the letter of intent in.
So we can have a letter of intent in and then develop the policy, say in March, adopt the policy in March.
Yeah, the letter of intent has to be in by March 1st, and the application has to be in by April 5th.
So one of the concerns, and Steve and I met about this earlier today, and we're talking, is that we don't want to get into a situation where we apply for a grant and we get $20,000 in grant money, and then over the course of a period of time, it costs us $30,000 to comply or to report about complying. The thing with these particular grants, the best we can read is that to be in compliance, you really have to have a goal and work towards that goal, and there's not a lot of teeth on the back end. So, our goal for, say, metric number 2 there is that we're moving forward with a solar field. And if for one reason or another that solar field gets caught up, either from a county zoning perspective or whatever it is, well, that could be a reason why we didn't meet the goal and we don't come back and get hammered later. So the other thing is that it doesn't appear, based on our read, in my opinion, to be really all that stringent on when you develop, a baseline. Well, a baseline is a baseline. So if we have 10 buildings right now, and in 5 years from now we have 12 buildings, then it's not really apples to apples in terms of saying, well, look, our overall electricity usage is up, even though we use the grant money to install more efficient heating system. So in this building, it's down 15%. Overall, across the whole town, it may be up 9%.
Well, if I heard correctly, if I remember reading correctly, it said per square foot, though. So
Right.
the first one's completely
Yeah.
feasible. The third one seems kind of a little bit odd, that it's just total petroleum usage when we're adding vehicles, and we don't have a lot of control there. So
Yeah.
unless we, start up a bike program, bike to this pump station for our maintenance guys. So barring that, I would say we'd shoot for 1 and 2, and
I feel comfortable, it's up to you guys, that we can have a plan
sure,
to reach toward a goal on numbers 1 and 2.
yeah,
Because we almost do anyway. So if we use the money to already to put in some of the projects we were talking about, where like furnace in this building, and then say like the maintenance shop or something, and those are already more efficient. And Steve had mentioned switching over from heating oil to natural gas. Well, that's more efficient.
sure. And even if it costs $20,000 to comply, you still get the savings from your energy reduction.
Right.
If we really reduce energy by 15%, then we still get that.
Do I hear the group correctly, or do you want to make a move on that tonight to move ahead on the project? Now, I will bring you up to speed. I just read here, the policies, they have to be passed. 2 of the 3 policies have to be passed by December 31st of this year. But if you feel comfortable passing them now, that'll move the process along much easier and quicker.
Well, are we ready on the policies, or are we ready on a letter of intent?
Well, I have to agree with you, Mayor Warner, and Councilman. I believe that policy 1 and 2, I think those are goals that we can meet, or we can try to meet. And again, they're goals,
Is this based on the solar project?
Yes.
Number 2
Councilman Pacelli, I'll come back to that.
You know what I'm getting at?
It is, but our energy supplier, by the Fed standards, has to purchase a percentage of renewable energy from outside the grid. So we may be able to use that to apply it to this too. So
Even if the solar field.
don't put all your eggs in one
That's
basket
what
as
I'm
far as
getting
the
at.
solar, but I think
Right.
we can, I think Direct Energy, I know for a fact that there is a percentage that they pull that has to be renewable. So we may be able to apply that to that, yes, yes. And the solar project, if it goes, you know, it's just icing on the cake for us.
Right.
So, yes,
Okay,
correct.
good.
Okay, well, do we have a motion then to move forward the letter of intent? Or are we adopting policies 1 and 2 right now?
It's up to you folks. It'll make it a lot
What do you guys
easier.
feel?
Might as well.
We're not going to change from the 1 and 2,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Right,
let's-
one-
Okay,
I make a motion, we go forth a letter of intent and set goals on items 1 and 2.
that's fine. Very good. We'll move ahead on that.
Motion?
I'll second that motion.
Can't motion and second.
I was saying.
second
Oh, okay. Motion and second, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. So we have direction on that. Was there another one in there, Steve? I know a lot of these we dropped into the agenda.
The, okay, personnel policies on the agenda. Hold on 1 second, please. No, that should be it.
Okay, anything else for Steve? Okay. Moving down. Police report submitted by Sergeant Getz, copy in your packet. We have summary information this month, so police officers responded to 61 calls for service, resulting in 12 criminal reports, 5 arrests were made, 6 traffic arrests, including 1 DUI. Bring everybody up to speed. I think that you are up to speed on where we are with the police chief search. Again, to give an update to the public, we had for those of you that I guess weren't here the last month or two, we had a police search committee consisting of me, Councilman Myers, and a representative from the MAMA organization. That committee researched 15, we blindly researched 15 resumes, so we had those scrubbed for names, addresses, personally identifiable information, pictures, if they included a picture on there, anything like that. And then we selected people for an interview. We interviewed. The stage we are in now is we've made a recommendation based on the resumes and the interviews to the council. What happens from there is I will have to officially nominate somebody. So if that has not happened, the council will then vote on somebody, and that also has not happened. So where we are is we're in the background check stage of that search. So the group has made a recommendation, and then we are moving forward with a background check, which is about a week in, I believe, and expect to take probably a couple more weeks. But I don't know for sure how long that takes. I think it's kind of when they can get it done. So we're going to get down. I recognize that you're here, and so anybody that wants to speak, if you could please make it easier when we get to that point, if you can sign in, and then we'll go from there. Bay Restoration Fee Hardship Exemption Program. This is in your packet. This is something I believe we need to vote on this tonight, right, Kelly? So essentially what this is, I'll give everybody just a quick update. You've probably noticed in your water bill that the state raised your Bay Restoration, the so-called flush tax, essentially doubling it. And they have made us, or at the bottom of the food chain, essentially the collector for that. So we're responsible for going out and getting it, and then just turning it over in full to the state. The state does have say an abatement program or a hardship program, so we need to adopt that program so that if anybody within our jurisdiction in the town meets these criteria, they can apply for essentially an abatement for 1 year, and then they reapply. So they have to meet certain criteria. I'll just highlight them, and then we can vote on to essentially participate in the state program. So it has to be an owner-occupied residential property, be eligible for the Bay exemption. Property must be receiving the homeowner's property tax credit, and then must meet one of the following: receiving energy assistance, be on SSI or food stamps, and/or receiving veterans or Social Security disability benefits. So that's the long and short of it, and it's good for 1 year, and you have to apply every year. So this is essentially it's a housekeeping thing. We need to vote just to have this on our file so we can participate, or our citizens can participate.
One question, is this
Yep.
the same exemption process that the county's going through for other municipalities? So
Yes.
we're adopting,
Yeah, we basically modified the counties.
okay. All right.
I'll make a motion, we adopt it.
I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand the last bullet.
That's one of the requirements from MDE. They wanted, in our policy, we have to give an estimate of the number of potential applicants. So I had to call SSTAT because I don't know who's applied for the homestead or the homeowner's tax credit. So I contacted them, they came back and said there's about 51 properties in the town limits that would have at least applied for the homeowner's property tax credit.
So that's just thrown in there, but that's not a hard and
Right.
fast number or anything.
Yeah, this
I
is-
mean, it's not
No,
gonna be
no, no.
limited to 51 people.
No.
It's essentially a reporting requirement that we had to estimate.
Okay, I understand now. I didn't know how that bullet got in there.
Yeah, I think Carroll County's number was like 1,100. So
Okay.
we were kind of like, okay, well, because our first thought was, how many bills do we send out? 1,200 bills, how many bills? But, there's renters and so forth. And so basically, people will get this information. We'll have it available on the website and so forth. And then they can, they have to bring a property tax bill, and then a copy of either energy bills, what have you, meets the criteria, and then go from there. Originally, we thought, well, if the state is going to make us collect it, then they can set up the parameters. Somebody has a problem, we were sending them to MDE. MDE said, no, you need to come here, so.
They only want the money. They don't want any of the administrative work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have a motion?
I made the motion.
Motion, we have a
I'll
second?
second the motion.
Motion and a second, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, carries. Change, so we have an update to the personnel policy. This is something we discussed last month. We did not vote on this last month, but we did, as a consensus, give the staff direction to go ahead and make this change to sum up. And essentially, and kind of going through some of the things we've been going through in the last couple of months, we were made aware that changes that were made years ago to key positions in town, including Director of Public Works, Director of Finance, Chief of Police, Town Administrator, that they had been made exempt employees and were then not eligible for comp time, and then we have them here at all hours of night doing meetings like this and at the planning and zoning meetings, and essentially they're just doing them. So this kind of pulls them back into the fold and is a little more equitable to the town staff we have and recognizes the time that they're spending. Are there any questions about this? Do you guys have a chance to read through it?
Yeah.
So this is something we can vote on tonight and kind of get cracking with. Any motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion,
I'll second. I'll give it to Tammy.
Tammy seconded. Motion second, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Ethics ordinance update. Kelly, do you want to give a summary of kind of where we are and the timeline of what the options are?
Sure.
It doesn't matter.
Or Steve's ready.
We've been in contact with our attorney, Sue Ellen Ferguson, who is the attorney working on the ethics ordinance. We received this late yesterday. Kelly and I had a chance to briefly go over it today. We were on the phone today with Ms. Ferguson. Her recommendation would be, I guess our recommendation would be for you folks to look over this draft ordinance. It includes everything that is needed by the State Ethics Commission. She is going to mail a copy of this draft to the State Ethics Commission to review. They should not have any problems with it. It will come back, and then we recommend it to be introduced and voted on. Now, there is one issue that falls into play, and we have an election coming up. So I made it, Mrs. Ferguson made it clear to me that at the present time, we can use our existing information in our existing ethics ordinance to use for any candidates applying for the position of councilperson. So we're covered on that. I think we can make one step farther and make it clear to these people when they apply for this, that when they come on board, of course, a full this will be passed hopefully by that time from you folks. At that point in time, make it clear to them that when they come on board, that a full financial disclosure form has to be filled out per the ethics ordinance that's accepted. So that's where we're at right now. We had planned, if timing was correct, that you could introduce this evening and vote on it at the March meeting, but we all decide, when I say all, Kelly and I and Ms. Ferguson all decided that you folks need time to digest this. And this will give the State Ethics Board time to review it also. So that's why we had a delay on that, so.
Should be some fun reading, Steve.
I have a question.
Yes,
We have 3 vacancies on the council,
that's correct.
and those that fill in a form to be on the ballot,
Right.
what do they have to?
The current form
The
that
current
we
form.
currently have, right.
Okay, now, if there will be 3 elected,
Yes,
in 2014, they have to fill out this.
yes.
Okay, now you all see this. I think the people that want to run for office need to know what they're going to have to sign. And so I would suggest that anyone that wants to run for council get a copy of the ordinance, the ethics ordinance, that you'll be required to sign and fill out in 2014.
My understanding is it's actually applicable in 2013.
Right. Whenever
As soon as
So-
it's passed.
As soon as it's passed. So actually, I agree with Councilman Riley that we need to add some sort of a statement or something on here saying, you know, upon submission of this and prior to April 30th, a full financial disclosure is required.
And they have to have that disclosure before
Although it
they
won't be
can.
approved at the time of the applications being out there,
Right.
it will be available prior to the elections. And that's a qualification of election, which is in May, right? Because the disclosure is required by April 30th.
It is,
but-
but the timing will not work. It,
If you introduce it in March,
right.
you
Right,
approve it in April,
right.
20 days later is, I don't know what the meeting in April, date of the meeting, but it's 20 days after the fact.
Right.
So when we were going to do it in February to March, it would have been April 1st.
Correct.
I don't know the date of the,
April meeting would be the 9th, so it would be prior to April 30th. It's 20 days later.
So the timing may work.
May work.
Yeah, it may work.
Your timing's like spot on, so that's why I wanted to make sure that we clarified that.
Candidate filing, though, candidate filing.
They have to file
See,
by
they
April
have
the
to
1st.
Right, that's where we run into
Before
the
passing.
timing problem.
For the filing, but the disclosure, I understand the law is still by April 30th.
What we're saying is when they go to file,
Right.
they have to show proof of age and residency and so
Right.
forth. They fill this out that they are electing to do that. The form is not approved at the time they have to do it. And basically, they would have to register by, or say, put their hat in the ring by April the 1st. And then,
And this won't be approved till the 9th, is what
yeah,
you're
and it's not
saying.
effective until 20 days after the fact. So, I mean, the election board would have to, they have a certain amount of time where they have to certify that the application is valid. And I think that would probably occur prior to when it's effective. Now, I mean, if you wanted to put on there, you know,
I think we can do that.
my-
We can
you
add
know,
that on
this is
there.
what's
So
in
they're
effect,
very
but
well aware.
realize going
Yeah.
forward.
Fully aware.
That's right,
Yeah.
that's right, that you have to disclose this information, yeah. Now, we're comfortable that, well, say, our attorney's comfortable that the State Ethics Commission will not balk on any of this. She feels pretty comfortable that they will agree to that, but that's always something we have to keep in the back of our mind if they have an issue with the draft.
Okay, so are we suggesting then that new candidates coming on, new council members coming on, would be exempt from completing the full disclosure until 14, but existing members would be required to complete it by April 30th?
Well, we're going by what's in effect currently, and it has to be done by February 15th is what's in the current ethics, which is just the short
Right,
thing
the-
saying, what gifts you received, more than
Right,
$20 or what have you.
Right.
Is there any conflicts? It's a lot more basic. That's what's in our current code right now.
Correct.
Maybe I don't know, maybe the bottom line is that there are changes coming. We have some things to figure out in terms of what date lines up when, and then who that applies to at what point.
At what point? That's why I didn't know if we're going to have two different timetables depending on your position on the council.
And we might, but we
Right.
probably have to get an opinion on that and then a ruling from the State Ethics Commission. But at the end of the day, if we give one of those packets to anybody that comes in and applies and says, hey, look, you're going to have to do this. So just so you're aware, you may have to do it in April 30th, you may have to do it April 30th, 2014, I don't know.
Yeah.
But you should know.
Because there's a considerable amount of information one has to retain throughout the year.
That is
You just
correct.
can't pull this together on the due date.
That's correct.
That's the point I'm trying
That's
to make,
correct.
so, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we don't need any action on that. The ball is
Right,
rolling.
but we have to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Chances are this is going to be introduced at the March meeting.
All right, Mr. Ray, it's Batters, right? Mr. Ray Batters has requested to be on the agenda tonight to give a proposal for a change to Postal Park. Do you mind stepping up? Yeah, we're not high-tech enough to have the whole thing mic'd.
As way of introduction, I'm a member of the Hampstead American Legion, and I was, last year, I was the chairman of the committee that raised the funds and updated the War Memorial Wall, and also planned the Veterans Day ceremony this past year. So I was thinking that Manchester should have a Veterans Park of our own. A space that's set aside exclusively for veterans, a space of remembrance, a space of recognition, a space that has high visibility, easy access, and ample parking to it. And I was at the post office and looked across the parking lot, and there was Postal Park. And I said, boy, that thing really would fit the bill. However, there were 3 challenges. Challenge number 1 was that it's called Postal Park. So I went into the post office and spoke to the postmaster and said, would you have any objection to renaming Postal Park? This is all unofficial. Okay. Would you have any objection to renaming Postal Park Veterans Park, Manchester Veterans Park, or something like that? She said, absolutely not. I think that's a great idea. Challenge number 2 was the current caretakers of the park. And so I called Dorothy Townsend and met with her, and she's excited about it. She said, I think that would be great to turn Postal Park into Veterans Park. So there's no problem with Ms. Townsend. The third challenge was, do we have a clear deed to the property? I met with Kelly and Steve, and we researched the deed, and of course there is a clear deed to Postal Park being owned by Manchester, town of Manchester. I serve on the Veterans Committee here in town with Chuck Miller, and I ran this past him. I said, what do we think, Chuck, if we made a Veterans Park here in town? And he said, no problem. So here's the proposal. Number 1 is that we form a committee to do that. I volunteer to serve as the chairman of the committee. I already have 2 members, unofficial, a fellow from my church who's a veteran who lives in town, is willing to serve on the committee. And then, of course, Ms. Townsend said that she would be willing to serve on the committee as well. And the committee would do 4 things. We would choose the name of the park, whether we call it Manchester Veterans Park or something else. Number two, develop plans for the appearance of the park. What do we want to do up there? And of course, all this would be subject to council approval. Number three, media relations. Carroll County Times and the Northern News, through my work with the Veterans Committee with the American Legion down in Hampstead. I've had those contacts on these various news outlets that we could bring them aboard also. And number four would be fundraising. There were people from the American Legion that I worked with on fundraising that I'm sure would come up and give a hand here as well. I'm anticipating several $1,000s we would have to raise so that there would be no charge to the town, except, of course, having meetings here in the town offices and using the electricity here. Target dates would be dedication would be Veterans Day 2013 of this year. Is that doable? Yes, it is. Take several months to raise the money, a few months to draw up some plans, get the contractors in there, because whatever we decide to do. So yes, it is doable. I would want to start fundraising as soon as possible, and I know that you folks either need time to think about it and take a vote on it about the forming committee, but of course I'd like to have it done as soon as possible, or I'd like to say as soon as possible, so we know which way. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to have a meeting.
What makes you think it would be more suitable where out there than it is here? You got you have traffic on three sides.
It's when we had the dedication here 4 years ago, when we added the names, we had a spillover crowd that spilled down the steps into the street. Over at where the post office is, that's essentially private property. We usually close all the streets for a dedication ceremony.
Well, it's not private property, it's
Essentially.
public.
Essentially. I mean, it would be a whole lot easier to shut off the parking lot than it is a street to go through the state of Maryland. And then it has high visibility because there's people coming in and out of the post office all day long. And easy access to it, as well as a lot of parking up there.
So you're proposing to move the stone out here with all the names, or not?
The first proposal would be to form a committee.
But you're proposing to move that,
Not tonight.
not tonight.
Not tonight.
I wouldn't hope you do it tonight, though.
No, that's not
If
the
you're gonna,
proposal.
if you're going to dedicate that as veterans, whatever,
Yeah.
that monument will be out there. Am I correct?
Uh,
Sometime.
Yes or no? That would be subject to the approval of the committee. If we had simply the Veterans Park up there without the stone.
I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah.
That monument out there is really the center of the attraction because of the names that are on there. Am I correct?
Yep.
So that would be left here?
The first order of business would be to form the committee. And then the committee would come back and give recommendations.
I think what we're doing, and Steve and I had a conversation too, and he knows a little more, and Councilman Raleigh know a little more of the history than I do. But I think there may be some issues with, how the town came to occupy this current property and then the use that it's kind of dedicated for, and I think that's wrapped into it.
Correct.
And then, another thing that, this is going back a couple of years, is that we've been in the planning and we got kind of derailed by the economy and the way that the state deals with, funds from us. So essentially, our funds got cut, substantially from what we get from the state. So we were close to, either redoing this building or having a new building, because this building has some issues, and then that was going to be incorporated into that property as well. In terms of, I guess what I'm hearing in terms of just having some proposal as a committee, I don't think that you necessarily need our blessing to have, some people get together and say, hey, here's a recommendation. And this would be something nice to do, but in terms of, I think what you're looking for is for us to kind of like, hey, here's the reins, and you have this committee, and then this committee has the ability to do whatever they want. I don't know if that's...
That's not the, no, it would be, a committee will be formed to come up with a proposal of what to do if we did rename that into Veterans Park. And yes, there was a discussion earlier about moving the stone down there, which I think would be great to move that, but then when we checked with the town attorney about,
Right.
there would be the attorney would have to look into it to see if you could still meet the criteria that was set up for this building here on this property, and still move the stone. That's,
But I don't really see, if you have a ceremony, you would have the ceremony out there in the new area, and the monument would be here. Is that,
the long-range thinking, when Steve Kelly and I were talking about this, the long-range thinking was that eventually the stone would be moved to the new town hall property that's being built behind the post office. So
okay.
so the issue, there would be a piece of ground set aside next to where the new town hall office will be, and then that still falls into question, does this still need to be Memorial Hall? Does that fulfill the terms of the deed and the property that was initially given to the town of Manchester?
Right.
So
That's all the
why-
questions I have.
That's years ahead, building the town hall over there, but if we could get a jump on it and have Veterans Park right down there, you could word it in the resolution, and Mr. Mayor, in forming the committee, that the committee does not have free rein, that we are a part of the town council, not a part of, but we answer to the town council, that we would have no power on our own to spend money without council approval. Because all the way that I envision it, all the money that would be raised would be made, the chest would be made at the town of Manchester.
I don't want to speak for everybody. I don't know if there's traction right now to move the monument from where it is.
We're not, even if we started with baby steps to make that into Veterans Park right now, without the monument there, we could, at the bare minimum, we could have a sign that says Veterans Park, Manchester Veterans Park, at the bare minimum, and at the very bare minimum. And if that's all that the council would do, then that's all we do. We contract with a sign maker to make a sign that says Manchester Veterans Park. We raised $475 for the sign, and our job is done. The committee is disbanded.
First of all, thank you for caring about a part of our town, and trying to do something that, moving something in a positive direction. So I appreciate your efforts. I don't want to make any postal workers upset, of course. I think that's probably a bad idea, but I'm fine with not having that be called Postal Park and moving towards a Veterans Park of some sort. Having a committee, as has been clearly indicated, removing of the monument is probably something that would be very difficult to pull off, or if not impossible. But making that park look nicer and changing the name, and at this stage, at least, forming a committee to put a proposal together, I don't personally have a problem with that at all.
One of the thoughts that I had was the brick, replacing the bricks. I spoke with Ms. Townsend about that. Is she married to those bricks and everything? And she said, no, absolutely not. We can tear those bricks up and put down something else. And one of the thoughts that I had in the back of my head was, and of course this would come before the committee, was to get like 12 to 18-inch emblems of the 5 branches of service, and put those on like 45-degree 45-degree stones, so that as you, as a Navy veteran, I would prefer to have all Navy, but, gotta say, okay, there's Army and Air Force, but as you go down that sidewalk there, you can have the 5 branches of the service there next to the brick sidewalk. The bench that faces that beautiful blue spruce tree, I don't understand why you would sit in front of a blue spruce tree, but the bench is there. Another thought would be to have 2 benches up there, but not facing the blue spruce, but in that triangular portion coming right off the parking lot. So at the bare minimum, without moving the stone, and that's like, I understand the difficulties there.
Hey,
But,
Steve or Dan, is there any, and I don't know, I'm asking, historical reason or sentimental reason that it's called Postal Park?
No, it's no reason.
I can't
and,
answer that.
And the town owns it, the post office has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, sometimes
ours.
whenever
It belongs to the town.
Yeah, I know it belongs to the town. I just didn't know. Sometimes you propose something and not knowing sort of the nature of how it came to be, you could be undoing something that was
Somebody
meaningful to
decides that's
something
what
else.
it'd be called, and that's what it's called.
So I think maybe where we are is I feel like that you have some concepts in mind, and I think you're asking for sort of permission to have a committee to come up with an idea when you don't really need permission to have a group of people come up with an idea. So, like, people come to us periodically and they'll say, hey, I have an idea for what we could do with the flower areas on Main Street. I have an idea for what we could do with a walkway at Christmas Tree Park. And I think the next step would be, if you or some interested parties have an idea and there's not a reason that we're keeping it the way it is, hey, this is something that would be useful, it would honor some veterans, is just come up with the idea and then come back with the idea. But I don't want to sing off on a wild goose chase, because it seems to me, and just some of the reaction, that maybe the traction isn't there to move the stone. But if there's a way that you can come up with an idea, then just do it.
First idea would be to rename it Veterans Park. Then I could officially form a committee, and then we could come up with some proposals for Veterans Park. So without having it renamed and say, well, we're going to have to come back to the committee with our ideas, we don't even know if we would support it.
I don't think there's, and I don't want to speak for everybody, I try to move things along a little bit. I don't think there's an aversion to rename it Veterans Park or Manchester Veterans Park or something along those lines. I don't know that we have to do that in order to say, hey, we could change the stone and rearrange the benches. Do you know what I mean? So if you have an idea, then let's encompass all that stuff together and then come back with that whole proposal, and we'll get to the council at that time. I don't think that is there an aversion if somebody would like to redecorate it?
I guess I have are you also asking if you're able to go out and raise funds towards this project? Because if you are, then that's a whole different animal.
It is.
That we do need to address tonight, I
No,
guess,
yeah,
or sometime
see,
in the
my
future.
hands will be- I can't raise any money
So,
without
right.
your blessings, so
Right.
to speak.
Because you're indicating that donors would be giving it to the town of Manchester for the purposes of upgrading or
Maybe
beautifying the...
Maybe they'll change the name to Veterans Park, and maybe they'll go along with your ideas. So if we can say, yes, we are going to change it to Veterans Park, and yes, we are going to permit you to raise money, then then the committee could say, okay, the first order of business is to put a sign up there, Veterans Park, Manchester Veterans, or come up with a name to Manchester Veterans Park. That's the first order of business. And once we do that, then we can say, as a committee, here's what we want to do. We want to get the service shields, all Navy, of course, but we want to get the service shields up there. But we need approval of the council before we move forward on that. So we come to the council and say, can we have your approval? Here's the designs that we have that we've decided for Veterans Park. We've done we've costed this out. Some of the labor is going to be donated. Some we'll have to pay for. We have to come up with X number of dollars for the project. And then it's a very simple, either thumbs up or thumbs down for you folks.
So that, I mean, I guess the thing is, before you would even raise any money at all, obviously you'd have a budget, you'd have a program, a plan of this is what it's going to look like, et cetera.
Yeah, and-
So I think that's all we're saying is, I don't think you're getting any sort of resistance to the idea. So I would say, go ahead and formulate the plan. This is what the park will look like. This is the name, and then your intended budget. And then at that point, we can say all's
Well,
good.
that's-
And
See, I can't start doing that until so we know which direction we're going in, because we don't even know if it's going to be, Veterans Park is going to be approved or not. So instead of spending 80 man-hours discussing improvements to that piece of property up there, maybe the first order of business is to vote on renaming it Veterans Park.
This is kind of getting sprung on us. I don't know that we're going to get a vote on that tonight. I think this is kind of,
I wouldn't expect.
this is akin to almost like an Eagle Scout project, but by a veterans group instead of, by somebody on their way in, right? So when we have those sort of presentations, there's pictures and a concept and something tangible. Say, hey, here's what I envision. Here's the layout. Here's a picture of the property. Here's the materials we think we're going to use. Here's what we think we're going to do, rather than sort of like hey, let's approve a concept and then we'll build the plan. Does that make sense? So I think we need to have a little more in the way of, here's the way we envision. We envision it to be called this, assigned to be here, this kind of materials, the benches to be here, the vegetation to be this, and then we go ahead and then you raise the money and then you make it happen.
but you're not. I mean, I think it's pretty clear you're not on a wild goose chase. I think everyone's interested in your ideas.
What I'll do is get some ideas together, get some costs together, and come back next month.
Okay,
Fantastic.
that works.
Thank you very much.
There may not be something.
All right. Question and comments from the community. We have a number of people signed up. So the way generally this is, we'll read the names down. If you're in the audience and you have something to say, we'll allow you to kind of tag on to the end of this, but we try to maintain some sort of order so it's not kind of yelling out and throwing tomatoes and that sort of thing. Excuse me, I'm sorry. The other thing is, please step up to the microphone, state your name, kind of your where you live, what you want to talk about, and we'll go from there. And then, as you go, we ask you to keep your comments to about a minute, so kind of get to what your point is, and if your point is the same as somebody else's, then just kind of say hey, I'm here, and it's the same thing. That way, we can kind of move along. So, Melinda Smith is the first person on the list.
Okay, first off, I didn't really realize I had to let you know ahead of time, so I apologize, but I would just want to discuss a few things about the hiring of chief of police. I spoke to the mayor several times. He's been wonderful with kind of keeping me abreast of what he could, at least, to let me know what's going on. I have a lot of concerns, and I'm sure that, I assume that everybody here knows a lot of them or have heard a lot of them. A lot of them being rumor, obviously, that I've heard, don't have facts behind them, but I've heard from a lot of people. One thing actually involves my daughter, so that's a concern to me. And I'll speak on that because that's one thing I do know the facts on. And the one question I have is I don't know if I'm allowed to say his name or if I'm not allowed to say his name, but I assume everybody here knows, or at least should know. Are they allowed to know?
I don't know. I don't think it's a secret that we're moving forward with a background investigation of somebody. I'd prefer, and like you said, if you're stating something, you can,
I mean, it's my daughter. I'm going to have the facts. That's
Right,
the problem. I guess my main question is, are we allowed to state his name? Because I think people here should at least know who it is, because they may have their own information on him as well. I mean, obviously, there's a good bit of people here with me, but there may be some people here that don't know and aren't aware of his situation.
I guess I can't tell you what you can and can't say. I mean, if it obviously just becomes,
Okay, well,
and
I'm
I'm
not
being,
gonna-
if it just gets to the point where, it's, it's kind of like reiterating rumors or something that would be slanderous or something, then.
Well, I will not do anything that has to do with
And I
rumors.
understand.
I won't do anything slanderous. I think we spoke about that on the phone. I
Yep.
mean, I understand it's going to be fact, and that's fine, but I just want everybody to know my part, and then maybe you guys could give us some input on what's going on with the progress of it. I know I've spoken to you a lot, and you've been very helpful, but I'm curious if everybody else knows the background and the situation with him, and I assume you do, but basically, I'm under the impression he was offered a conditional offer of employment, which is, you know, that's how it works, and there's some background investigation going on from what you said earlier. There's going to take a few more weeks. My concern is, I guess, who does the full background check? Is it, and I think we talked about this, and it's maybe the Hampstead Police or whoever does it. Who gets a lot of the information? And I believe you said 3 of the 5 have to vote, and yes, that he could be. Is that correct, or how does that work? Once it's brought
So,
up?
according to our charter, and so I, you know, there's things, like I told you, things I can say and things I can't say.
I understand that. There's
And-
some things I won't say either.
And that, okay, that's fair. So the way that it works, we inserted the police chief search committee in order to try to arrive at the best possible conclusion that we could. So that's not a required, I'll say, step in the process. According to the charter, the required steps in the process is the mayor nominates somebody to the council. The majority of the council has to vote.
3/5.
3/5. Sorry.
Okay, so 3 of the 5, basically. Okay.
Correct.
So when we've done the background check, is there any information that we can have as town people of Manchester on what's going on with it, what we found out about him, other than what I know and I'm gonna?
I would have to say, I mean, I would not feel comfortable releasing anything publicly from a background check unless it was vetted through our town attorney.
Okay,
I think that we can comment on steps that we take
okay.
in terms of a background check, but, I'm not a...
Okay, I understand.
Okay.
Okay, so the one thing I want to speak on then is the thing that I know is fact. When he worked for a prior police department, and he retired, one question I'd like to know is, has anybody asked what has led to his retirement? Somebody that works a lot of years for a job that makes over $100,000 a year just doesn't up and retire for no reason, or push their retirement up by 6 months or a year, okay? There's been a lot of things and a lot of rumors going around, almost to an embarrassment, when you run into people in the store, things that they're saying, which that's things that I'm sure that you guys will get with the background investigation. However, my concern is, my daughter she was a student at Manchester Valley. This person at one time was a police officer in another county, has no jurisdiction in Carroll County. My daughter they were going to a softball game, to a softball practice. The bus didn't come, they missed the bus. One of our family friends, they were going through surgery for cancer and things like that. They missed the bus, asked would she give them a ride. She was on her provisionals, was not supposed to ride anybody in her car. We understand that. They called the other parents because they couldn't get a hold of us. The other parents said, yes, this one time you may ride them there. He gets there, calls her out in front of the whole group of people, embarrasses her and screams at her. Instead of getting the facts of what's going on, which he already knows, because believe me, all of us as parents are at the schools all the time. He's very familiar with me and the other 2 parents. Okay, so he takes her license. There's an episode at the school, okay? And then, after all this happens, he gives it back to her, tells her he shouldn't give it back to her, and proceeds, okay? That part, that has nothing to do with him getting a job. However, except for the fact that that's not really the way you handle things. It's not his jurisdiction to do that. If he had that much of a problem, he could have called the Carroll County Sheriff, he could have called whoever should be able to handle this, not him. Then, to go into work the next day, and to pull my daughter's driving record, which is a violation of his job, which is an abuse of power, when my daughter was 16 years old at the time, ordering somebody else to do this type of thing, amongst some others that I've heard that he has done as well, all younger females. That concerns me. There's no reason for him to go in there, pull my daughter's information, and then state to some other people that he pulled it because he was checking if she was on her provisionals. He'd been a police officer for over 25 years. I'm pretty sure you can look at a driver's license and see that it says provisional on it. All I'm saying is, if he's going to abuse his power as a lieutenant in another police department where there isn't internal affairs, as the chief of police, where there's nobody to babysit him, he's going to make him, it's going to be a mockery. And I don't know if anybody up here has daughters, but I'm going to tell you every rumor that I've heard, and I'm just saying the rumors because I don't know fact for sure, and the things that involve my daughter and the other children, all have to do with younger females. And that concerns me. That's a concern for me. I don't want somebody being chief of police where I live in a nice neighborhood and have somebody that I have to worry about. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't want to worry about any retaliation from him either, because that's a concern for me too from what I understand from his background. And I just really am concerned that we're going to bring somebody in here when we could possibly reopen it, let other people apply maybe. If we have to extend the time, extend the time. But for somebody that has this type of background and an abuse of power and very poor integrity, because if he's already, I guess my question is, if he says he's spoken to their parents, he has not, because I called every one of them last night. Nobody knows that he's done this type of thing. And I just think that it's an abuse of power. He's ordering other people to pull young girls' driving records. That has to be approved by the Maryland State Police, the NCIC, and all this other stuff. And he's violating all that. And there's been a lot of other issues that revolve around females that I can't get into because they're not fact, and I'm not going to say it here because I know we're on, we're recorded, but I really think that this needs to be investigated. And the other thing that I know that we said that there will be a polygraph. One thing that I've spoken to some people, and I've actually spoken to an attorney just questioning it, that has to do with the police department. I want to make sure we're going to do an integrity polygraph, not just a work polygraph. Anybody here can pass a work polygraph. But to pass an integrity polygraph, that's a whole other story. And I would hope that we're going to put him through something like that, and I would hope we're going to do some more checking. And if we're going to be bringing him in March, we'll all be here again because I'd love to hear the outcome of what we found out. And hopefully at that point, we can let the town know what we found out. And if we're going to proceed with him, or if we're going to reopen, or what we're going to do. And like I said, you've been very helpful. You've been wonderful. I mean, you called me right back. I mean, when I called and spoke to Kelly and said I want to speak to the mayor, I didn't expect you to call me back in 20 minutes. That was wonderful. So you've been great. And, give me any information that you could, obviously. I know you can't overstep your boundaries. But I just really wanted everybody here to know. I wanted the people that are here to know that that's a huge concern. And, I mean, I know a lot of people may not realize, and I don't know how many people here have police background, probably not a lot. I know there's probably a couple here, but that's a huge violation. You cannot pull young girls' driving records. You cannot do things like that. So I would just like to know, once we get to the point, obviously we can't say anything here, but I'd like to know what we're doing, maybe next term if we're going to vote him in, what we're going to do, what we've done to check his background, what the outcome of it was. And I think the people of the town that pay his salary deserve to know. So
Okay.
I appreciate your time. And
Absolutely. So I can say, what I think that we can say is, and Councilman Myers has been essentially with me on basically every step of the way, is that we made a recommendation based on interviews and resumes, and then we're going forward with a full background check. And I've never been a police officer, so it's not my world. So we're relying on help from our nearest agency, which is the Hampstead Police Department. But to the best of my knowledge, anybody that this is not the best of my knowledge, this is a fact. Anybody that we hire as police chief, anybody, will go through a full background check. So we can't comment on the details of the background check and kind of how that's going or what comes out of that, but anybody that becomes police chief will go through a full background check. Steve and I reviewed the packet, so that's going to include a polygraph test. I don't know the verbiage in terms of what's work and what's integrity. If I were to surmise, work would be essentially, is your resume true? Integrity is going to be a whole bunch of other questions. This was almost, at least as thick as the ethics thing that Dan held up earlier. And Steve and I reviewed all the questions, and their questions are not just work-related. They're essentially personal behavior related, for the most part.
Who's going to give the polygraph?
I believe the Maryland State Police, don't hold me 100% to that, but it's a Maryland State Police polygraph test.
Why did you get,
Do you mind coming up? I'm sorry, just so...
Does Hampstead always do the background checks for our police officers?
So-
Why not go through the state police?
Well, I don't know if that's any, as you know,
No, I'm
I've been
just
mayor
curious.
about
I'd like
almost
to know.
2 years. So this is the first police officer, certainly first police chief that I've hired. So we rely on the other people around us to help us through things.
Any job that you get in the police department, in the school systems, all the background checks are normally done by the state police. And of course, that's retired Baltimore County.
Right.
There. So I just was curious to know. And the second question I have is, why isn't Councilman Pacelli on your search committee having the background, having police background?
Because I was a candidate.
Oh, okay. Well, then why isn't he the chief?
So
Sorry.
he's in. So
I didn't
again,
know.
I don't want to.
All right.
I don't want to.
Sorry.
I don't want to speak for Councilman Pacelli and
Okay.
so Vince has been part of the process, and he kind of chose the path that he wanted to take in the process. And he and I have spoken on a number of times, kind of, about that.
Okay, well, it just seems to me that if a lot of these people have concerns that there's vicarious liability here against you and the town, so say goodbye to the rainy day fund if
Right.
these incidents continue to happen. And that's why I said I would like to know why didn't the state police do the background check and, so, the polygraph?
So I'll say really, we had headed down this path prior to, say, a groundswell of people coming forward with things that I don't have any personal knowledge of. So, from our respect, we have a candidate, we have a resume, we validate the resume. People say things that may or may not be true. I don't know, but we need to get to the bottom of it. Does that make sense? So,
Yes, it does.
and that's kind of where we believe we are.
Okay. But you're not going to let the ball drop. You are going to take everything at face value and really consider the fact that there could be vicarious liability in the future if you do hire someone when concerns are put out there in front of you.
We will not hire anybody, and that's anybody, if they cannot pass a background check. Up to including the Maryland State Police polygraph.
Polygraph. Okay.
So, I know.
Could I
So, and that's kind of what I can say right now.
Can I ask a question? How do you know that he ordered someone to pull your daughter's driving record
Okay, I'll tell you.
without?
Do I need to come up there?
You should.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, the mayor, I've spoken to him about this, and I wasn't really going to advertise this, but I'll say, my husband's a Baldwin County police officer. My husband was called up by the captain of the police department to speak to him as to what he wanted to do as far as pressing the issue or charging him with pulling her driving record. He had from my understanding, there was some, again, rumors of what had happened as to why he was retiring. I don't have all the facts. I'm not going to state on them because I don't have them. But when my husband was called up to the captain and said, look, this is what he did. He's pulled your daughter's driving record. My husband's been told there's been some other younger females as well. I don't know who they are. It's not my business of whose children they are. However, he was called up and said, well, what do you want us to do about it? Should we proceed with charges for him, or shall we, whatever? My husband said, he's going to retire. I'm a fellow police officer. I will not press charges. I do not want charges pressed against him. However, if he's not going to retire, then yes, I am going to press the issue. And that's how it came. So my husband was brought up to the brass, I guess you would say, per se, and had to answer to them as far as what they wanted to do.
Okay.
I'm just getting a little nervous.
Okay.
I'm thinking about your husband's employer.
Right.
Just,
Which is why he's not here.
that's fine.
He was advised by the person that investigated it to not come due to internal affair issues and any type of retaliation. He did not come. I'm here to speak on it. It's my daughter as well.
That's fine.
And, that's why I didn't give anything about any other rumors I've heard. Everything I gave you is fact about my daughter. You can certainly call and you can speak to someone there, and I'm sure they can enlighten you on the issue. But I just have a huge concern, for myself, my two daughters, and I'm sure several other people here that have daughters, that I don't want someone like that. I don't want someone that has no checks and balances. I believe, is there internal affairs for Manchester Police? Do we know? Is there anybody, or are they just
No.
answer to you?
We don't have internal affairs. What we do is if we have an issue, we use the state police.
Okay. So I guess what I'm saying is there's not a big checks and balances. He would be in charge. I mean, if he did something wrong, he could shove it under the carpet and move on, and nobody would ever know, possibly?
And I know,
Could that happen?
yeah.
I'm just asking. I'm not saying it would. I'm just asking, could that happen?
Well, what would happen is the aggrieved party would make a complaint to the mayor.
Mhm.
The mayor would turn it over to the state.
State police handles it. Okay.
So we have had issues. I mean, again, I've been mayor not quite 2 years, but I was involved in the council 12 years before that, and I know, Councilman Riley's been here for a long time. So we've had issues with police officers before, and then that's kind of how, if we have an incident or we have a complaint, we turn it over and they do an investigation. So police officers have their own law enforcement bill of rights, and
Right,
it's
I
kind of
understand.
different from, you probably are aware of this,
I understand how
it's
that
different
works.
from somebody
Yes,
else.
I understand how that works. So that's my concern. I mean, I just want to make sure there's checks and balances. I understand we're doing a background investigation. I don't know how deep that goes. I don't know how much is really in his background, because if you retire, you know, I mean, you retire.
Right.
And it doesn't always show. So, you know, I just would appreciate if a thorough background investigation is done, if we do an integrity polygraph, and then, I guess my question is, you're saying it's going to happen in the next few weeks. Is he going to be sworn in on March? If that all goes through, he'll be getting sworn in?
So I guess I'll say this. We are aware, and a lot of things have come, a lot of talk has come to our attention in recent weeks. So we're aware of what people are saying, and we're doing and do everything we can to get the best person in police chief, regardless of who that is. And it's not going to be anybody that can't pass the muster.
Okay, and then the last question I have is there an option to withdraw his offer of employment if something comes up, reopen it back up for other people to reapply and start the process over, or do we have to?
Anything's on the table.
Okay,
So he's not been,
It's conditional.
it's conditional on passing that, but he also hasn't been nominated to the council.
okay.
So the way our charter works, I have to nominate him to the council, but based on the advice we got, we have to do this conditional employment in order to kind of kick off the background. Otherwise, we're doing a background check on someone we don't have a right to do.
Right, I understand, okay.
So we had to do that to get to a background check, to see if somebody can meet the test, to then apply to appoint or make a nomination to the council.
Okay. And Mr. Miller, I appreciate your concern. I definitely checked into all that first. I was not going to come here and say anything that was.
I just wanted to protect
No.
your husband
I
and his
appreciate that, yeah, which
influence.
he's already had approval of what I could say and what I could not say, and that's why I said you won't hear anything out of my mouth that's not fact.
Very good.
So,
That's fine.
thank you.
Okay, a number of other people signed up, so I'll read your name if you want to speak to something. Then, and forgive me for the names. This is Brian, begins with a G. Quick.
I have the same concern.
Okay, fair enough. Doug,
Same concerns.
same. Okay. Melissa Smith. Same. Thanks. Jen Snyder. Okay. Dottie Ambrose. This one's in cursive. Is it Tom? Is it,
I want to know who runs the police department.
so do you mean in general, or are you asking right now?
Generally, I want to know, I live on Westminster Street.
He's going to wait.
Do you mind coming up,
Yeah,
sir?
there you go.
I live on 3052 Westminster Street. So probably, I don't know, probably a couple thousand cars come by there a day. Speed limit is 20 miles an hour. They come by there 30, 40, 50 mile an hour. Can't get anybody to give them a ticket. And I want to know who I've asked. I did ask one of the police officers, and he came over there and sat, give out 2 tickets, ain't seen him. I've asked the state police, I've asked the sheriff's department. My concern is, on one side of me, I got like 4 kids. On the other side, there's like 3. One in behind me, there's 5 in the next house down. I don't know how many's in the apartment project over there.
Right.
There's already been 1 kid killed over there. There's nothing I can do to slow them down.
I will address that and we'll get some, see, you're kind of in the same boat that a lot of us are in, right? All of us live here, all of us live places where there's kids. It is a battle to get things done. I will get the communication to get somebody over there.
Well, I see a police officer sitting on 27. You got 3 speed limits in a quarter of a mile.
I understand.
They're giving out a lot of tickets.
I understand.
My neighbor will let them sit in their driveway. And it's a hard place to give out tickets. I'll grant you that. But if one of them kids gets killed over there, it's going to be a problem.
I agree with
I
you.
mean,
Well,
they're coming by not just speeding, they're doing double the speed limit and more.
I will add your area to the list of places to make sure it's a hot area that gets hit.
If they need a place to sit,
Will you leave your address with the town office and then,
yeah, my neighbor, 34.
do you have it written down?
They got the perfect spot.
Okay.
They can sit right there, give a ticket. Because, I mean, I don't have no kids, but I sure would hate to see my neighbors get killed.
I think we're all in the same
And
boat.
all the kids that go to the skate park, they all come down there on their bicycles, skateboards. It's only a matter of time before somebody in one of these big SUVs doing 40 mile an hour kills one of them.
Okay.
So,
We got, I'm with you. I will add it to the list. You have my
I know a
word.
lot of people have
Okay.
it, but there's a lot, that right there, that little strip.
It's a
of
hot
road,
little corner right there.
There is a lot of, there's probably twice as much traffic comes by there as does your house. I don't
Yeah,
know
it could
where
be.
you live.
Then you don't know, right?
No,
No.
but I would
But
say,
I know.
on the average, there's a lot of traffic.
She knows where you live.
Mrs. Howell knows where I live. Well, I mean, look, we're all in the same boat. Mr. Miller, he lives right here on York Street, and York Street's as busy as any place we have in town as well. Councilman Black lives on Main Street. Main Street's busier than any place we have in town. Todd's neighborhood gets really busy. He lives on Howley East, which is a cut through. I live on a cut through on this side of the street. I mean,
Right, I mean, I know
It's the
people
same
who live
concern.
in Holly Hills.
Yeah.
I know if somebody come through his neighborhood 50 miles an hour, I'll guarantee you that if
It
everybody
happens
was
over
going
there, too, I
50, I'll bet you the cops will be over there the next day.
You'd like to think so.
Right. And, they put a thing down there for speed limit, tells you your speed. I don't do no good. And if somebody's just gonna come there and sit there one day, that's not gonna do any good either. They need to sit there different times of the day and a bunch of different days
I agree with you.
in order to make some, because if not, they're just gonna blow by there and give them a ticket. I learned when I got a ticket, it slowed me down.
Me too.
All right, I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Courtney Clinton? Same. Okay. Anybody else didn't sign up that would like to speak? Sure.
Do you think it's possible to address these concerns when this person takes a polygraph? Can you?
You're speaking of the concerns that,
Yes.
so,
Whoever gives the polygraph, the
and
state
again,
police.
you have more experience with this than I do.
Yeah, I think you can probably direct them to say, ask some of these questions because we have concerns.
So what I want to say is that the town is aware, we have made of concerns. The town has made the individuals doing the background check aware, and the specific questions that will be involved in the polygraph will address concerns of the town. So from our perspective, we're interested in getting the best person that's not going to do damage to anybody, right? So we are 100% focused to make sure that we're mitigating all risk of having somebody that is not going to be best for the town.
Okay, just want to.
So I think hopefully that answers your question, that it's not, the polygraph is not, did you work here this many years? Did you go to school here? It's a full polygraph.
All right.
Okay.
He outed me already.
Yeah, I didn't give my street address. Gave everybody else's. So move on to committee reports. Doug?
At the Planning and Zoning Commission last month, we discussed two things. One was Number One North had a presentation of a possibility of looking at moving to another site in town, and they just had their engineer in just to kind of get the feeling from the Planning Commission to see if it was worth going forward. And the Planning Commission gave them the okay that, it was to look at the possibility of even purchase. They haven't even purchased.
This is the spot down here?
Yes. And they were going to make improvements to the alleys. Goes back to the veterans. It's a long-range plan.
Yeah.
And they just had a concept. And they wanted to, before they got too far going, they just wanted to make sure they were going in the right track, or if it was even viable to do it. So that was one thing. The other thing we talked about was Steger's Overlook. It did a pretty detailed, because back the last time we talked to them was probably September-ish. And they were going to do some studies we had some concerns about the traffic in the alleys, the drugstore, the 4 o'clock traffic. I know what it's like out there on Westminster Street and the drugstore. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues of traffic over there. Their engineer came in, gave us a lot of different scenarios. This Saturday, we've got the local fire department with ladder truck and other trucks, weather permitting. There's some issue, because this is a 3-story building, which is going to require a ladder truck actually from Hampstead and Westminster.
2, right.
And 2 ladder trucks. There's an issue of the alley, how it's going to get in there. I suggested at that meeting, well, look, you know, you can go and show us on paper, it looks beautiful, and the turning radiuses, I get it, I'm an engineer, so I understand it, but just bring a truck out there. So that's what they're doing this Saturday morning. They're going to, I want to see it work. It's no better thing than bringing the truck right out there and looking at it, you know. You can draw it on plans and say it's going to work. So that's our next step with Stegers Overlook. And that's all we have.
Okay.
Next question
Oh,
for that. I know we don't usually discuss things here, so I'm breaking
Okay.
protocol. So, number 1 North, looking to move, but I mean, whether they move or not, there was so much work put into the sign ordinance that was passed by the, I mean, Ryan, when he was working with planning zoning, and then members of the community, et cetera, to get that sign ordinance in place. I mean, it's been a while. I've read through it at that point. Are they in compliance with our sign ordinance, or even close?
I believe they are currently. I know there were some issues, and I think they did make some requirements. And one of my questions was if they go to the new place, because right now it's sort of residential, we'll say, and it's kind of dark. It's not bright lights.
Yeah.
If you put a store down there, and it's way down the road, but I talked to their engineer, and I said, well, you know, I don't want all these bright lights. You know, it just takes away from what's there now.
Surrounding people, yeah.
You know, somebody that lives across the street. I mean, there's only actually one business, which would be next door, the existing business right now.
Correct.
But all 4 sides has got residential buildings around it.
That's true.
So, you know, I say,
That's kind of why
you're going to have to
asking,
do
yeah.
something with the lighting before I approve something, because it's going to take away from what it is today. The lighting has got to be an issue.
The
So
signage is another
Signage
thing
is
to-
going to be an issue, too. You know,
I'm not anti-sign, but
I think Michelle worked with them, I think, and I don't want to speak for like the current state right now, but I think one thing they did was took some of the things that were plastered on the window and kind of created displays
yes.
back off to technically meet the test.
And I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think some of the issues were basically it was a police issue. You know, it was a safety
Can't see
issue.
in, yeah.
You couldn't even see in. I mean, they had every glass, and an officer couldn't tell, you know, if they were in need of, or you know, or if somebody was in there. You know, you just couldn't see. So it was their safety to remove some of the signs, and I think they did meet the requirements.
Yeah, I think they did. I mean, they could change it every day, but.
yeah, no.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have. Thanks.
Councilman Black?
Couple things with the Parks Foundation. First off, bunch of dates coming up on May the 5th. They're having their big Spring Fest, and they got a pile of stuff going on for that. So mark your calendars for May the 5th. And then they're having their big Easter egg hunt prior to that on March the 23rd. And that's 10 a.m. sharp. And apparently there's 4 age groups from walking to age 12. So that's apparently...
No strollers.
What's that?
No strollers.
No, you have to be a walker.
That's what I'm hearing.
Walking to age 12. But there's 4 age groups, so there's no fighting and all that kind of stuff going on. Safety first, right? And then the Parks Foundation is looking really to solidifying their strategic plan going out. So they would like to have a joint meeting with actually have a council, the mayor come out to their April 8th meeting so that we can have a joint meeting. They have a PowerPoint presentation they prepared, all kinds of great things to show you the history and future plans perhaps, of course with with the blessing of the town at hand. So anyway, a lot of things happening there, and I'll update you as things happen probably for next month.
That's April 8th?
April 8th, yeah. And they have some new board members that will have to get sworn in as well. So, Mayor, you'll be on the
I'm on the agenda.
You'll be on the agenda.
Okay. I'll put it on my calendar.
No update.
Councilman Shelley, no updates? Okay.
I have nothing further, no.
I don't believe I have anything on order.
Okay, if that's it for the business meeting, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn, move into closed session, discuss personnel issues pursuant to Article 10, 508A1I, State Government.
I make a motion to adjourn and move into closed session.
I second the motion.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, good night.
I didn't either. I was going on the run.
That was the one missing paper I had.